And I will officially kick us off. Welcome everyone to this month's UXPA Minnesota workshop event. It's October event, a 2-day workshop. You know all that. That's why you're here. We're here to listen to Sangam Napit. He's our special guest presenter. He's a human-centered design expert who's done a lot of workshops over the past couple of years, which is relevant because doing workshops has changed a lot over the last couple of years. We think you're really going to like the content that he's got and the presentation. Even though we're doing it virtually, there should be lots of ways to get involved. And of course, my plug here, if you're in town, if you're able to join us, we will be this afternoon from 4:30 to 6:30 at Surly Brewing Company. So please join us there to continue our conversation and chat about what we've learned, what we're thinking about, what we are looking forward to tomorrow, or just general networking and all that good stuff. A couple of announcements off the top. I want to thank all of our board members for all the work that they've done this year. We're coming to the end of the year. This is our last regular monthly event, believe it or not. And then next month in November, we have World Usability Day. Lots of information coming soon. We're hoping to be able to open registration for that very soon and share all the cool speakers we got and all that. So look forward to that. Also, we currently are open for nominations for next year's board of directors. So you should have seen an email. If you haven't seen that with the form to vote, please contact us. Just post it in chat here. Let us know if you don't have it. I'll send you an email right away so you can get in that form. And as you are going through and voting, you will notice we're short on some nominations. We have more positions available than we have nominated people. So if you see a position that you're interested in, by all means, nominate yourself. If we do not get nominations for all those, we'll do some kind of extended process where we identify some more candidates and have another round of voting. But board membership is very cool. It's a great way to give back to this community. It's a great way to make connections with local UX practitioners and learn a lot and be in a position of leadership in this community. You also do not need, there's not really much for a minimum qualifications for this. If you're worrying, I'm not qualified, I'm not ready, I can't help, you probably can. But if you have any specific questions, feel free to talk to me or Jalen or Lucy here on the calls, another current board member. There might be others further down the list that I don't see, but any of us would be happy to talk to you and answer any questions you have about what that kind of involvement would entail. And then last of all, before I hand it off to Sangam, I'm just going to give my usual thank you to our sponsors. We have a few annual sponsors for UXPA Minnesota, and this is one of the last chances to mention them. So I want to shout out those names: Securian Financial, Foundry, Beacon Hill, Boston Scientific, and Optum have all contributed financially to help us keep the lights on and run events like this and like the happy hour that we're doing later this afternoon. So thank you to all of them for support. And we are going to be looking for sponsors for next year pretty soon too. So if you're at a company where you're in a position to ask for that or support, I'd love to talk to you about that as the current president and see if we can get you on board for next year's sponsorship. Comes with some cool perks as well. So with that, I think that's all I have to say. Jalen, did I miss anything? If not, I will hand it over to Sangam to start the workshop.
All right, thanks, Andy. Big thanks to UXPA MN for bringing me back here to for another workshop to discuss human error. The first workshop I led was on human-centered design and employing human-centered design principles in the UX discipline. What I've tried to do here, this is actually a great continuation of that workshop. Talking about human error is very applicable after we've discussed, and I see several familiar names here, so you probably are familiar with the previous workshop that I led. But a lot of the human error discussions and topics and definitions that we'll be talking about in this workshop will be directly related to the discussion around human capabilities and limitations. So you might notice that I reference a lot of that older material, but it's totally fine if you did not come to that workshop. Not a big deal at all. This material should stand alone on by itself. And human error is a very prolific topic in the human factors discipline. So if you are a human factors professional, a lot of the topics that I'll be covering related to definitions, reasons behind human error, human error types should sound familiar to you. But what I've tried to do is we're trying to look at this through the lens of the UX discipline, so the user experience design. So I'll be referencing a lot of user experience design, user experience research related items as well. So if you're in the field of UX, hopefully we can see the parallel, because at the end of the day, I believe it's the same thing, right? Human factors is talking about capabilities and limitations, mostly around the physical side, of course, the mental side too, cognitive side too. But in terms of the UX discipline, we mainly focus on human information processing, and then of course the cognitive capabilities and limitations. So yeah, I'm very excited, and thank you again for joining me. And I realize that today and tomorrow, if you're in Minnesota, is MEA weekend. So if you're still here, despite that, thank you for showing up. Thank you for deciding to spend an hour of your day today and then tomorrow as well. So I greatly appreciate that. Let me go ahead and turn off my video so we can kind of focus on the presentation itself. So feel free to do the same if you'd like, or you can stay on video, whatever you feel comfortable with. All right. So we're going to begin with a quick exercise. Please find something to write on. It could be on your computer itself. It could be a pen and paper. We're going to spend 2 minutes on this. And what I'd like you to do is reflect on all the memories that you can think of what happened on 9/11. So that's almost 20 years ago. So I'm definitely asking you to recall a lot of information. Do not share it with anybody. No need to copy and paste and put it in the chat. Just write it down and save it. We will be coming back to it later at some point. If you do not feel comfortable with recalling memories from 9/11 itself, find another memory, preferably something that's a little bit older, maybe between the 10, 20-year range, and go ahead and write down everything and anything that you can remember related to that memory. So I'll get us started with the clock and let you know when we'll come back. All right, our time is up. Feel free to stop. It's okay if you did not get a complete thought written down there at the end. But let's go ahead and stop and save that somewhere. Try not to delete it, and make sure it's easily available, because we'll be coming back to it at a later time. Let's begin with a thought here. I want us to kind of ponder: is it possible for us to completely eliminate human error when we design a system, process, feature, or product? I know a lot of us are involved in designing different things. and so if you're in the UX field, think about your products, your features that you're working on. If you're in the human factors in the medical device industry, maybe it's a system, maybe it's a medical device itself, or a process. Can we eliminate human error altogether? And I think in general, we probably could all answer this and say, yeah, no, it's not really possible, right? But so if it's not possible, then what can we do? Can we do something during design so we can at least reduce the severity of the consequence or the likelihood of human error occurring? If so, and if we believe that to be true, what can we go about doing? How do we create systems? How do we create processes and features and products in a manner? How do we design these things in a way that we reduce the likelihood of human error and of course, hopefully minimize the impact and consequence that the error yields. I want us to think about that as we go into the different topics today. And to get things started, we're going to actually go directly into a case study. And in a moment here, I'm going to ask Andy to break us into groups. There'll be 3 people per group. But if you recall, in 2010, there was a big oil spill in the Gulf of Mexico called the Deepwater Horizon oil spill. It was this Macondo, I believe, was the name of the drilling rig. But there was a huge incident. The oil rig lost millions of barrels of oil. The estimates I remember kept changing as the investigation unfolded. There was loss of lives. It's a very tragic situation. But what I want you to do in your group is to work together, of course, go online and do some research. Try to find out what human errors specifically. When you do your research, you'll notice that there's a lot of mechanical failures that occurred as well. But I want us to focus on what specific human errors led to this oil spill, because there are quite a few to this oil spill in the Gulf. And then if you can, let's take it a step further and see if we can list a couple of items that you think might have caused those human errors. Okay. Again, the focus is human errors specifically, some of the root causes, human error root causes, and then, of course, what you think might have caused those human errors. So we'll spend around 15 minutes or so doing this group activity, and we'll come back and just spend a few minutes discussing this as well. So, Andy, I'm going to pass it off to you and see if we can break out into different rooms.
Okay, I'm pressing the button. The number of participants is moving a little bit, so not every group's going to have exactly 3, but should have at least 3. And we'll call you back after a few minutes to discuss. Let us know if you have any technical issues. Here we go. Welcome back, everyone. I hope you're having great conversations in your breakout rooms. There's a few people that haven't come back yet, but in 5 seconds, they won't have a choice. So we'll get started again. There we go. We're back.
Awesome. Welcome back, everyone. Hopefully you guys had a fruitful discussion. I'll go ahead and come on camera here for a second. Feel free to either come on audio or just drop comments in the chat. But anybody want to share at a high level a couple of the human errors that you identified that might have caused or led to the deep water incident?
I can start. So not sure if we're categorizing these correctly, but we saw incorrect interpretation of information, a misobservation, failure to act with the correct information, and an attribution error. So you're noticing that something is off, but it attributing it to the wrong thing.
Yep.
Yeah, I found a great article that really laid them all out. The 8 failures that caused the spill.
Nice.
So
yeah.
I think one of the other errors was the formulation for the cement was wrong.
Right.
So
yeah, I saw that as well.
It was sort of like a storm of really terrible events all happening at the same time.
Right. And if you've seen that Swiss cheese model diagram, right, of what leads to an error or an accident or incident, this is like where all those holes in the Swiss cheese aligned, right? It's unfortunate because lives were lost because of this incident. But yeah, I came across those 8 failures as well. Yep. Anybody else find anything outside of what was just discussed that you want to bring up?
Wasn't it also like their failsafe, like the pipe like bent or something, so they couldn't actually activate their failsafe that they had in place?
That's right. There's 2 fail-safe mechanisms that did not work. Yeah, that's on the mechanical side, but yeah, 100% correct. Go ahead.
I was going to say one of the things that we saw was that the computer model said that it was going to be, their system was too weak, but they ignored it. They didn't follow industry standards, and so one of the things that we were discussing was, at what point does human error become negligence?
Yeah, it's a good question. That is a good question, and a good transition to why do we think some of these errors occurred? What led to some of these human errors? Did you get to that point in your discussion that you want to share?
For me, there's 2 big pieces. One is money, right? And 2 is the wrong people making the wrong decisions for me.
Yeah. How would you categorize the wrong people? How would you define that?
Well, it seems like some of the higher ups were making decisions that it had impact because of money, right? We don't want to do X because it's going to cost us more money. That is the wrong person making the wrong decision, in my opinion.
Gotcha. Yep.
And we thought that there was generally some hubris involved, where people are overconfident in the systems, and it had such a stellar safety record, supposedly, even though there were some signs that there were issues. So people seemed overconfident and weren't looking at what the actual data was suggesting. So,
did you land on why they might not have been looking at that data, or did they look at it and choose to ignore it?
It sounds like there were some safety inspections that maybe were ignored because they were overconfident, and then let's see, I can't quite remember.
Yeah, but I think you're pointing at a valid concern, which is the overconfidence, over-reliance on a certain set of maybe procedures. But it's very interesting. Some of the research that I've come across said that there were a lack of standard procedures, lack of risk assessments, which in the oil and gas industry, I mean, a lot of their projects are executed based on risk assessments. Inadequate training, I'm sure you came across that, poor communication. But a lot of the analysis, one thing I want to bring up here, a lot of the analysis kind of stops at, you probably noticed this as well, right? Stops at human error. Oh, it's because this person made this mistake. What I want us to do, and there's a reason I wanted us to look at this incident specifically, what I want us to do is try to imagine if there's more to the story and more to what led to that human error. Could we, if we did a 5 why, right, root cause analysis on the human error itself, what sort of answers would we get? Those answers are not obvious by doing just a quick online research, right? I'm sure if you read the entire report that government agencies came up with, you might get to those based on the analysis they did. But that's one thing I would like to push the envelope on to see for us to start thinking about, with these human errors, could we come up with reasons why these human errors occurred? Okay, so that's kind of I want us to be in that sort of mindset. And I'm going to go off camera here, and then we'll jump back into our presentation. All right, well, thank you for participating in that exercise. Hopefully it was fruitful. Hopefully you got to meet some people as well, and that was fun. Let's move on. So we'll start with definitions here. There's so many definitions of human error. I mean, if you go and try to look this up, there's copious amounts of definitions. One that I like here, very simple: an action that has negative consequence or fails to achieve the desired outcome. And of course, a lot of times human error. Like errors lead to good things happening, right? Like, oh, I made this mistake, but turns out it was actually a good thing, you know. So we're not talking about those type of errors here. We're talking about errors that have an impact, maybe on business, product, and also have maybe a, you know, different varying levels of consequences as well. So just keep that in mind. With that, I want to see if you can spot the error on the next slide. There's no timer on this. I'm just going to put it up. And then if you do spot the error, go ahead and put it in the chat. Okay. And whoever does it first correctly, you know, they'll be the winner. And hopefully you're attending Surly tonight for some beer to celebrate your win. But yeah, this won't be timed, but we'll kind of reconvene once we have the right answer. All right, that was really fast. Yes. Did everyone see what's wrong here? The two these, THE. Clearly, Brock and Elizabeth, you are in the 16% of folks that probably spotted this right away. For folks that space after Y, ooh, is there a space? Yeah, it does look like there's a space after Y. The correct answer, you probably, some people might have seen this kind of brain teaser. It is the two does. That's the correct one. NT, I like it. I think we have some visual designers here that really are spotting some spacing differences. But let me refocus us on the articles, the two articles back to back. For folks that didn't see the two articles right away, any reasons you might have not seen it? Oh, I like that. It's a generalized statement. Yeah. Yeah, that's good, Paige. You assume the problem was in the letters. That's right. Yeah, could have been looking for something else. Yeah. So, okay, for the folks that didn't see it right away, right? Let's say somebody was doing a analysis on what led to the error of you not spotting what was wrong with this sentence. What would you say? What would your answer be, right? You could say, well, it's because I didn't focus on the wrong thing, so the root cause was human error, right? Yeah, maybe there's some distraction. Maybe you're focused on the spacing, you're focused on the letters themselves. Maybe you thought that's where it was. But what if this sentence was designed correctly to start out with, right? What if it did not have those articles back to back? Whoever created this sentence, right, did not design it correctly, right? And so the fact that you didn't spot it, of course, you know, is because of distraction, lack of attention, focus on different things. But if this was designed the right way, if the sentence structure was designed correctly, this error would not have occurred. So to my earlier point of human error, it's typically not the root cause. And you'll see me talk about that time and again throughout the presentation today and tomorrow. Let's keep thinking and pushing the envelope of what might have led to the error, and are there any design issues that we can think about that prevent these errors from actually occurring. Okay, yeah, and I like the psychology behind this too. You're right, absolutely right. From a human-centered design, from a psychology standpoint, applied psychology standpoint, there's a lot behind this, right? But if this sentence was designed correctly, right, the likelihood of error occurring here is very low. Although some folks did spot some spaces, so I guess there's always room for improvement. But with that, let's move on. All right, so we've heard that Apple has one of the most recognizable logos. I know Coca-Cola is probably number one, but let's work with Apple here. And tell me if you can spot which one is the correct logo. And feel free to drop the correct box in the chat. Yep, Daniel, you get bottom right. Yes, that is correct. Brock, you got it right as well. It is the bottom right one where my cursor is circling. I asked this to a couple of neighbors. They thought it was the one on the bottom middle. I don't think anyone thought it was the top ones, but this actually points to another actually human psychology and information processing principle, which is that we pay attention to salient cues, right? We don't pay attention to details unless, you know, the task or the goal calls us to do that, or unless by discipline we look for details, right? But in general, we look for clues that really kind of stand out, are more prominent, and we move on. Why? Because we're getting bombarded by many, many bits of information. Go ahead. Sorry, thought there was a comment there. Yeah, so we're constantly bombarded by many pieces of information. So our brain has to decide what to pay attention to. So in order to pay attention to as minimum amount of information as possible and move on to whatever the goal is, you pay attention to the salient cues and then kind of move on, right? So what causes human error? We've talked about some of these, right? Mismatch between intended action and action that's carried out because maybe lack of information, because of poor design. Cognitive overload is another reason human error occurs, the way the job, the task is designed, the sequence of tasks. And we'll look at some examples here in a second. And then management systems centered around business goals, not people. And I think someone brought this up earlier, the wrong people making the wrong decisions, right? Management was cutting corners because they were trying to save money. And I would push us to think further. Why were they trying to save money? Well, because that's what they are incentivized to do, right? So when you're incentivized to save money, to return a bigger investment to your shareholders, you know, you do what it takes, right? That's your goal. So you take the step, take the path that's going to get you to your goal. Let's look at an example of a mismatch between intended action and action that's carried out. How many squares do you see? And you can feel free to drop your answer in the chat. 1 or 0, I like that. Yeah, that's right. 0. There are no squares there. There are just Pac-Man looking things that create the illusion of a square being there, right? Again, a lot of human psychology behind why, you know, the information's not complete. So our brain goes ahead and fills in that information, but that is not what's actually there. Another reason error occurs. Many of you probably seen this one. Which direction is the bus traveling? This is an example of cognitive overload, the way maybe the job's designed, the task. All right, we got 2 lefts, maybe a couple of rights. Stationary trick question. Dana, I love it. I love that too. Surprisingly, this is what I've been told when I read this, that the same picture was shown, and you can see this came from Nat Geo. Apparently they did this research with the preschool kids, and the preschool kids all got it right, evidently, but adults, when you show this to adults, they don't get it right. The folks that said going left, why did you say it's going left? Bingo, the door in view. Yeah, so you're looking at this bus. There's no door at the side you're looking at, which then you would have to assume that the door is on the other side, which means the bus is traveling left. And apparently, preschool kids had a very easy time coming up with that because they ride school buses every day, more so than adults do. So that's the reasoning they said. They answered this correctly. But let's think about this a little bit, right? I like that someone said this could be a trick question. Let's pretend this was a feature, right? A product. And one of the goals is to identify maybe where the door is. What's a better way to show visually this image, right? You would maybe show it from a bird's eye view with a door side sticking out a little bit. Maybe, you know, you provide a little more context. I don't know, right? There's more that you could do so that the cognitive load for you as the observer is minimized to an extent, right? This is a brain teaser. So of course they're providing you with limited information, but when it comes to features we design, products we design, processes we design, right? How much more context can we provide so errors like this don't happen. Yeah, that's a good question. What if the bus is in a country where they drive on the other side of the road? That's a great question. Then they would say, where is the where is the door? Because it's not being shown yet. If it would be the opposite side. And I believe the article I read did talk about that. So point is, when we're designing things, how do we design it in a way that this type of cognitive load does not occur, where you have to think through things and you're easily able to make a decision and make the right decision. Next up, I have a video here. This is David Blaine, the magician. Many of you probably are familiar with him. This is a short, less than 5-minute video of his favorite card tricks. I'm going to play this and switch the audio here. If you have any issues, please let me know with audio, and be careful. So based on how you have your volume set up, it might come either low or high. So please adjust your volumes accordingly. But let's go ahead and take a look at this quick video of David Blaine's favorite card tricks, and then tell me if you can spot any errors in his tricks. Okay. All right. Give me a sec to set up.
There are a very limited number of basic effects. Finding a card, I mean, it's been selected. Well, that's an effect.
You thought of a card.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Can you say it out loud for the first time?
Spade 5.
5 spades.
Yeah.
Where do you want it to be in the deck? Middle, bottom, top, second, you decide.
Top.
Yeah. Look. Card's not in the deck. It just traveled through the air side and it landed under your watch. Look under your watch, turn your wrist over. Landed under his watch, under his watch, under your watch.
Well, it doesn't matter whether you find it under an ashtray or up behind a picture on the wall or in somebody's shoe. It's still the effect of finding an unknown card. Although there are thousands of tricks, there are only what you might call 20 basic effects. Of course, that's the way you take 8 notes in an octave on a piano. I mean, the number of variations they get are fantastic.
Growing up, I took cards with me everywhere that I would go. I never dreamed that those 52 cards would take me all over the world. Let them see it. Don't let me see it. Everybody else see it. Don't see it? Yeah, they see it. Oh, they see. Here, and they can't believe you put it in that this is the one. Take the deck and slide with it. This is the one where you fall. This is the one where you fall. This is the one. This is the one. You put your card in the deck. Oh, I put it in the deck. And I don't think there's. All right. It's just a chance to throw cards at my balls. I got it. Did you feel that just did? This pocket. Oh, Lord. Oh, good. I mean, it's just not right. It's just I was excited to travel to England to perform for Professor Stephen Hawking, one of the world's greatest scientists. It's an honor to meet you. Thank you.
Hello. How are you?
He has suffered from a degenerative disease since the age of 21, and even simple communication takes enormous effort. His staff also told me he hadn't been feeling well and wouldn't be responsive. So Stephen, name any card that you want out loud, any single card. And I obviously did not influence you and don't know what you're gonna say.
No, I know diamonds.
You said the 9 of diamonds, and I didn't influence you at all. That's fair. You could have thought of any card, and I put this deck of cards in front of you before we began. I don't even want to touch this because I don't want you to think that I'm cheating, Stephen. But can you open up this box that I put here before we began, but keep it in everybody's sight and let Stephen see it? Open the box, and one card is at the face of the deck. Turn the deck over and let Stephen and everybody see what card is and show them as well. And Stephen, you could have thought of any single card in the deck. That's 52 different choices.
Amazing. I don't know how you did it.
Be inspired, supported, and empowered. This is the Global Healthy Living Foundation podcast network.
Oh, sorry about that, folks. We'll try to stop that. All right. As we come back here, after being bombarded by some advertisements, yeah, could anyone spot any errors in what David Blaine was doing? It's hard, right? It's hard to see. Of course, we weren't there to see the entire trick. There's just clips of this trick, so maybe there are things that occurred where it happened when the camera wasn't rolling, or maybe he didn't show specific parts for a specific reason, right? But the key here is that magic relies on, and this is a quote from a prominent article, I believe, but magic relies on powerful psychological illusions, and magicians create their tricks by exploiting gaps and errors in our conscious experience. So this is where, of course, the errors that we make, the way we're designed, right? The way we're designed to perceive information, the way we're designed to process it, is taken advantage of, right? For the entertainment purposes. But the key here is that the magician is exploiting the gaps, in our conscious experience and the errors that they're fully aware of, and they practice time and again to take advantage of, right? So something to keep in mind as we progress forward. And I know we're coming up, looks like we have 4 minutes left for today, and we still have quite a few slides to go through. Our 15 of 60. So we'll go through a couple here very quickly, and then I'll start us back up tomorrow. But a couple of basics here. And I think all of us can agree that as a system complexity increases, information processing complexity increases, right? And if you are needing to process information in a complex manner, then the likelihood of an error occurring also increases. Quick, more basics. Errors can occur in 3 stages. I've already touched on some of this. It could be because of perception limitations, what you're able to see, not see, blind spots, because of cognitive limitations, depending on what you're paying attention to, like that sentence in the beginning, which a lot of us were paying attention to the letters and not the entire question itself. And then output errors that occur because of physical limitations, right? And I love thinking about the human information processing model, where you and the situational awareness model as well. Can you see it? Do you understand it? And can you correctly predict the outcome of what's going to happen, right? Because based on what you predict might happen with interaction with a machine or software that you're using, you're going to execute the steps accordingly. And if you incorrectly predicted the outcome, the chances of error occurring goes up, right? A couple of input errors here. Example of something that might be cause of perception limitation. I'll kind of go through these fairly quickly. What does this look like? A lot of people say it's a femur, and then it becomes very interesting if it looks like a piece of bone, human bone right here. It's very interesting because this picture is taken by NASA on Mars. And then you begin to think, wow, what's going on with human bones on Mars? And it turns out it's just a rock, and the orientation makes it seem, with the sand that's there, seem like it's more than it is. But again, this is an example of lack of information being available, and because of that, we perceive what we think it might be, and which tends to be incorrect. Mediation errors caused by cognitive limitations. Here's a quick riddle. What disappears as soon as you say its name? The answer is silence. Here's a quick example of an output error. This is caused by physical limitations. Again, you've probably seen this example before. What color arc passes through the center of the black circle? Some might say yellow, just based on maybe where it's located. Some might say blue. The correct one is the red, because that's at the center of the circle. All right, we'll go through this one very quickly. Reasons for errors. Let me go through these very quickly because we have a minute left. Two that I want to touch on is work situation factors and performance shaping factors, because I feel like these are valid for UX design and applicable for designing software as well. Work situation factors are often caused by how work is designed. So like the example of the bus, the way it was shown was causing you to think more than maybe you normally should. Not a big issue when it's brain teasers and when you're playing games, but when you're designing something, designing a tool that someone needs to use, let's think about how we can design it better so that the error occurring situations don't occur, right? Work situation factors, how do you manage these? You can manage these by designing systems to fit the user, eliminating error-inducing conditions, and not violating population stereotypes. And here's a great example. This is Amazon.com page, the retail website. If you're in Saudi Arabia, this is what the website looks like. And this example of not violating population stereotypes, where everything occurs from right to left. And as you can see, the hamburger menu is on the right. Typically, that hamburger menu is on the left, and the cart is on the right for us. If you read right to left to right, and it's flipped. So another example of work situation factors to consider. So it is 1 o'clock, so I'm actually going to pause here. So tomorrow we'll look at a couple of more items related to work situation factors and kind of work through the definitions a little bit more. So hopefully you're able to join once again tomorrow. Thank you so much for your time today, and we'll see you again. Thank you.